The movie begins with a young man named Gecko who is with his father in the forest searching for food. This takes place 10 years after the end of the world. We learn that a virus had spread and wiped out almost the entire world. This virus caused dogs to mutate into monsters that devour any living creature in their path. As a result, only a very small number of humans and animals remain on Earth. At that moment, Gecko and his father move very quietly because there's an animal in front of them, an opportunity that doesn't come around often. But when the father tries to hunt the animal with an arrow, he fails, and the animal quickly runs away. After that, Jake and his father continue on their way, looking for anything to eat. At that moment, the father notices tracks on the ground that suggest there are people nearby, so he and Jake follow those tracks until they come across a car parked in front of them. They discover that the car is empty and there's no one inside. So they quietly open it and start searching inside for anything that might be useful. At that moment, Jake finds some biscuits and starts eating them, but suddenly he realizes that his father is no longer there. He turns around to look for him, but accidentally steps on the car horn. The father is standing behind the car, exploring the area, and as soon as he hears the sound of the horn, fear and anxiety appear on his face. That's because the wild dogs have extremely sharp hearing and quickly move toward any sound they hear, so Jake and his father get inside the car and lock themselves in. Sure enough, the wild dogs arrive, but they pass by them and leave. Because Jake and his father don't make any noise, and after the dogs leave, the father takes Jake and heads toward a large pile of tree branches. It turns out they've used those branches to cover the hut they live in. When they go inside the hut, Jake goes to check on his sister. She's sick and lying in bed because she has a large wound on her abdomen. Jake gives her a painkiller to help her heal faster. The next day, Jake goes to use the bathroom in the septic tank. But suddenly he hears a sound behind him, so he runs quickly and rushes into the hut. He looks through the opening in the hut and is overcome with intense fear, so much so that he collapses to the ground from sheer terror. At that moment, the father wakes up and goes to look through the hut's opening, and he's shocked when he sees a group of people in front of them. They're called the Hunters, and we find out that these hunters hunt humans and eat them in order to stay alive. So the father quickly gets up, puts on his clothes, gathers a few things into his bag, then takes his son and daughter, and they all leave through the back door of the hut. They walk together through the forest until they reach a sewage manhole. At that point, the father opens the manhole cover so his son and daughter can hide inside. Then the father goes back and attacks the hunters. He manages to take down 2 of them, but then the leader of the hunters arrives and stabs him in the neck with a knife. Jake and his sister witness everything through the opening of the manhole, and they are devastated by what happens to their father. But neither of them can make a sound so that none of the hunters hear them. However, Jake is shocked when he sees the leader of the hunters opening his father's bag. When he finds the medicine for Jake's sister inside, he takes the bag with him. After that, the hunters tie the father to a tree branch, carry him and leave. But as the leader is walking away, he hears a sound coming from the manhole. Jake quickly puts his hand over her mouth to muffle the sound while the leader tries to remove the lid of the box to see what's inside, but Jake holds onto the box with all his strength so the leader can't open it. When the leader fails to open the lid, he peers inside, but as soon as he smells the foul odor coming from the box, he backs away and leaves. After that, Jake returns to the hut with his sister, who is unconscious from the intense pain and exhaustion. So Jake grabs the medicine strip to give some to his sister, but he finds it empty. In that moment, despair takes over Jake, because he knows that if his sister doesn't get the medicine, she'll die. He picks up the pillow, intending to place it over his sister's face to end her life. He wants to spare her the pain she would feel before dying, but he feels sorry for his sister and changes his mind. He decides to go after the hunters to get the medicine from them. Jake then leaves the cabin and walks into the forest, but he becomes exhausted from the intense cold and collapses to the ground. At that moment, he sees a child walking ahead of him, so he gets up and follows. He keeps walking after him, but the child sees him, gets scared and runs away quickly, until he enters an abandoned place, goes into a room inside and shuts the door behind him. Jake arrives at the place and sees the child hiding next to an old man. The old man appears to be sick and unable to move from his bed. So Jake breaks down the door and enters the room. The child and the man with him are extremely frightened. because they think Jake is going to kill them. But Jake takes the old man's clothes, leaves them, and walks away. Then he continues on his path until he reaches a place where he finds a pile of ashes containing human bones. The fire hasn't completely gone out yet, so Jake realizes that these bones belong to his father and that the hunters ate him after roasting his flesh over the fire. He digs a hole in the ground and buries his father's skull in it, then climbs a tall tree to try and locate the hunters. At that moment, he sees smoke rising from a distant location, so he guesses that this must be where the hunters live. But suddenly, he loses his balance and falls from the tree, screaming in pain. Then he hears the sound of wild dogs that had heard his scream, so he tries to get up from where he is to escape. But he can't walk on his legs because of his injury. However, he sees the firewood that the hunters had lit, and he finds a tree branch that still has some fire on it. Then we cut to the hunters, and we see one of them treating her companion. At that moment, they hear the sound of the wild dogs, so they realize the dogs have found prey and are attacking it. One of them moves and looks toward the forest with fear, and it's clear that this woman is the leader's wife, because he goes after her and puts his hand on her shoulder to reassure her. Then we return to Jake, who has managed to light a fire and places a tree branch on it to keep it burning. When night falls, the wild dogs reach his location, so he grabs a burning tree branch and starts attacking them to scare them off and make them leave. And indeed, the dogs are afraid of the fire, so they leave the area and walk away. The next day, Jake is sleeping next to the fire, which has turned to ashes. When he wakes up, he walks through the forest to head toward the hunters. But as he's walking, he comes across a tent in front of him. He picks up a rock and throws it at the tent to check if there's anyone inside or not. Once he's sure there's no one inside, he approaches it and goes in. There, he finds the corpse of a dead person with their bag next to them. He grabs the bag and finds a box of matches and a small knife inside, so he keeps them. Then he empties the entire bag onto the ground and finds a whistle, which he takes and puts in his pocket. And as he's leaving the tent, he sees the child he had seen earlier standing in front of him. As soon as the child sees him, he gets scared and quickly runs away. After that, Jake continues on his way and sees the leader's wife filling water from the river. He follows her until she reaches the place where they live. After the leader's wife pours the water into the kettle, she leaves the area. So Jake takes advantage of the opportunity and approaches the place. At that moment, he notices a transparent wire on the ground with a bell attached to the end. The hunters had set up this wire around the area so they could sense if anyone came near. Jake carefully steps over the wire and goes to search for his sister's medicine, but he doesn't find it, and suddenly he sees the leader's wife in the mirror as she attacks him with an axe. He dodges her strike and a fierce fight breaks out between them. Jake hits her on the head with a rock, killing her. After that, he goes inside the caravan where the hunters sleep and continues searching inside for the medicine. While he's searching, he sees the leader and his men approaching the place, so Jake quickly moves, takes the leader's wife's body, places the axe she had on her, and starts dragging her quickly to hide her. But as he's dragging her, the axe falls off the body, and then Jake hides the body behind a tree and hides himself as well, keeping an eye on what's happening. He's shocked when he sees the hunters have kidnapped the child and are getting ready to eat him. Then he sees the leader open a box and take out the medicine meant for his sister, giving some to the injured man. After that, he puts the medicine back in the box. Then the leader starts looking for his wife because she's late. So he goes to look for her by the river, and by coincidence, one of the hunters finds the axe that Jake dropped when he was dragging the leader's wife's body. At that moment, the hunter senses that something suspicious is going on, so he takes his companion and goes after the leader to inform him, leaving their injured comrade alone with the child. As soon as they leave, they take the injured man inside the caravan so he can rest. Jake seizes the opportunity and goes to free the child. The child screams, thinking Jake wants to kill him, but Jake unties him and lets him escape. After that, Jake heads to the box that contains his sister's belongings, but he finds it locked. He tries to break the lock, but he can't. Suddenly, he sees the leader and his men returning, so he quickly moves and hides under the caravan. At that moment, the leader is shocked to find that the child has escaped. The injured man stands in front of the leader and apologizes for letting the child get away, but the leader strikes him hard with a stick. Then, one of the hunters finds the body of the leader's wife behind a tree, so they all head over there. The leader returns carrying his wife's body, and at night they place the body on a pile of wood to burn it. The leader is grieving over his wife, and Jake is sitting nearby watching everything unfold. At that moment, he notices that the leader is wearing a necklace with a key on it, and he realizes that this key must be for the box containing his sister's medicine. After the hunters set the body on fire, they go to sleep, but Jake stays awake until dawn. Then he quietly sneaks into the caravan, and as soon as he gets inside, he lights a match and moves closer to the caravan. Jake grabs a knife and uses it to cut the chain holding the key to the box. After taking the key, he leaves the caravan and goes to open the box, retrieving the medicine. Then he locks the caravan door with a padlock and quickly runs away. But his foot hits the transparent wire, triggering the bell to ring. The sound wakes the leader, who then breaks down the caravan door and comes out with his men to search for the person who broke into the place. The leader knows that this person is the one who killed his wife and helped the boy escape, which makes him extremely furious. He's so enraged that when he sees the injured man struggling and unable to walk, he hits him and knocks him to the ground. Then he stomps on his head with his foot and kills him. As for Jake, he runs as fast as he can until he reaches the place where the boy and the old man are. He goes in to check on them, but he sees the tracks of the wild dogs on the ground. Then he finds the old man's corpse in front of him, so he leaves the place feeling deeply affected and sad, to the point that he doesn't even notice one of the hunters coming up behind him, and at that moment the man hits Jake on the head, knocking him out. When Jake regains consciousness, he finds himself tied up and lying on the ground. He sees the hunters getting ready to kill him, and he also notices a bag in front of him with its contents scattered on the ground. He starts crawling until he reaches the whistle, grabs it with his mouth and starts blowing it repeatedly. At that moment, the leader and his men panic because the sound of the whistle will attract the dogs to their location. So they run away from the place quickly, and afterward, Jake spots the small knife on the ground. He crawls over to it, grabs it, and uses it to cut the rope he's tied with. At that moment, the dogs arrive at the scene, but Jake hides behind a tree root and the dogs don't see him. Once Jake is sure the dogs have moved away from him, he grabs the bag and checks to make sure the medicine is still inside. At the same time, the dogs. He is the last one left among his men, and he's afraid the dogs will catch up to him and eat him, so he stabs the woman who's with them in the leg with the knife, so that she can't walk and the dogs will come and eat her instead. And indeed, the woman falls to the ground, the dogs catch up to her, attack her and eat her. And with that, the leader manages to get away, escaping the danger of the savage dogs. After that, he and the two remaining men split up to search for Jake and kill him. After a while, one of them spots part of Jake's body hiding behind a tree, so he quietly approaches him and kicks him. But it turns out to be a trick by Jake, who jumps down on the man from the tree and they start fighting fiercely. Then one of the hunters sees his companion dragging Jake's body, so he goes over to him, only to discover that Jake had actually killed the man and swapped clothes with him. As soon as the hunter gets close, Jake stabs him with a knife and kills him. After that, he takes the bow and arrow from the man and goes off to look for the leader. As soon as Jake sees him, he shoots an arrow into the leader's leg, causing him to fall to the ground, unable to move. But the leader breaks the arrow in his leg and is filled with rage. Jake approaches him and aims another arrow to finish him off, but the bow breaks. At that moment, the leader stands in front of Jake holding a knife in his hand, so Jake pulls out his own knife and gets ready to attack the leader. But suddenly they hear the sound of dogs approaching, so Jake runs quickly to save himself from them. After getting away from the area, he finds a high hill in front of him and notices an empty bullet casing on the ground. He realizes that someone must be nearby. Jake climbs up the hill and sees a large house ahead. As soon as he reaches the house, he finds a dead body with a pistol lying next to it. He realizes that the person had taken their own life, so he takes the pistol and goes inside the house. He's surprised to find a rifle with ammunition next to it. Then he enters the kitchen and finds a lot of food, so he starts packing it into his bag. But suddenly he hears a sound coming from behind him, and when he turns around, he sees the commander entering the house. He raises the rifle to shoot him, but the rifle jams. The commander seizes the opportunity and attacks Jake, and a fierce fight breaks out between them. But Jake manages to reach the pistol and shoots the commander, killing him. After that, Jake quickly escapes from the place, knowing that the sound of gunfire will attract the dogs to the area. Jake keeps running at full speed until he reaches the place where the child lives. So he takes some food out of his bag and places it in front of that spot, hoping that the child is still alive and will eat it. After that, Jake reaches his cabin, but is shocked to find the door open. He rushes inside to look for his sister, and then Jake comes out, devastated and in shock because his sister is not inside the cabin. So Jake sits on the ground and starts crying because he thinks the dogs ate his sister, and he feels guilty because he couldn't save her from death. But it turns out his sister is still alive. She comes up behind him and places her hands on his shoulder, and that's where the movie ends.